bringing different people together to have these conversations is to try and have an election season that is interest-driven, an election season where we talk about issues and not personalities. And today we are meeting, courtesy of these two wonderful organizations, to have a public debate around something that we think is a very important conversation, a conversation around equality in Zimbabwe. And because we tend to work in the women's rights sector and we have a keen women's rights interest and focus, our conversation today is going to be the hot topic in our sector, which is issues around affirmative action and, of course, issues around women's participation within the political domain. So to kickstart our program today, I am going to ask my panel, I'm joined by an interesting panel. I'm going to ask each of my panel members to introduce themselves, and I will then explain the format of how we're going to do the conversation, and then we will get straight into it. Just to let everybody know that this is a public event. I understand that we are also being joined by members of the media sector, so we are aware that everything we say in this room is for public consumption. If you are uncomfortable about what you want to say, unfortunately, this is not the forum to go private. This is a public forum. Are we together? Thank you very much. So I will start on my left.
Okay, my name is Johanna Masters. As you can see, I'm not the Honourable MP Beata Champinga. I've stepped in at the last minute, but that's because I'm quite intimate with the issue around the quota system. As a previous staff member of Research and Advocacy Unit, we worked very closely on the topic, and the two research papers you were given, I was part of that. So I've stepped in, and I'm going to definitely argue for affirmative action, and also because I know this subject very intimately. But if you want to know who I am, I was a former mainstream media person, member of the mainstream media, left quite some time ago, and have worked in the NGO and media sector for the last 2 decades around very critical issues. Definitely around gender equality, gender parity actually I would like to say, rather than gender equality. And I'm familiar with the regional instruments as well, demanding gender parity at all levels of governance and leadership. Not just governance, but also leadership. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jacob Mafume. I'm a lawyer for my sins. Then I also happen to be the spokesperson for the People's Democratic Party. And I'm a member of the Information Committee of the MDC Alliance, which is the alliance which we are going to go to the elections with, the alliance that is led by Morgan Changirai. And I'm a member of the committee that is led by or chaired by Professor Wolfman Nue. So I do come here in those capacities. I will highlight the MDC Alliance capacity more as it is the one that will be relevant for the ballot paper. We are definitely for anything that advances the cause for gender parity, the cause for leveling the field, so to speak. I've worked in civic society, I've worked in government, I've worked in the private sector, I've worked with a number of organizations. I was in the board of organizations that include gender issues or gender organizations. I was the director of the Crisis Coalition. I've also worked at the US Embassy or USAID as the US Governance Senior Governance Director. Therefore, I'm quite familiar with some of the work that has gone through to get us to this point, and some of the work that is needed to be done to get us to a point of parity. So that's how I come. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Honorable?
I'm Honorable Mliswa, not a constituency. I was going to ask my good friend Jacob that you're in the PDP, but you are to PDP. So I tend to enjoy this. All the political parties are asked, yes, you're in this party, but which side, which thing faction? So I think if the introduction is short, he must really tell us which faction of PDP he belongs to.
Good morning, everyone. I identify as a feminist. I am passionate about equality and equity and the status and the voice of women in our society. I am also the acting director of Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition. On top of being a feminist, I'm passionate about issues that has to do with young girls and women in general. So today I will be discussing on the against side. I think we are just drawing your attention to the remedies that are targeted at effect, but rather the root causes of the problems.
Thank you so much to my panelists. So we have an interesting and diverse group of panelists to discuss the issue of women's rights and issues around parity. But I also want to remind you that we are in a debate. Are you following me? So we have a team that is going to wake up in the morning and exist to represent the supportive side. We have a team that's also going to represent the what? The negative side. So as you contextualize and you frame the conversation that you're having today, bear in mind that this is in the format of a what? Of a debate. It is our desire that as the election season begins to unveil itself, we actually begin to see the players openly taking a particular position, and then we can begin to debate those positions. But to kickstart the season, we are saying, let us have a group that is for, let us have a group that is against. And what they're going to be representing are some of the arguments they're representing are arguments that some people are afraid of saying in the current environment. Some of the arguments that are there are the arguments that we speak about in our homes when we are uncomfortable about certain issues. Some of the arguments that are there are arguments that are going on not just in political parties but in our homes, but even in the spaces of governance, weighing the issues of parity. And that is the context in which we are having this conversation. So with that, I'm going to now ask each of my panelists to give me a one-line opener on why they believe that they should be standing on the side that they are standing. So the side on my left is going to start by saying why yes for affirmative action. 1 minute each, and because they'll give us starters, my friends will begin to respond, and so we shall proceed. I will then also proceed to allow, at the end of the conversation, I will allow you as members of the public to bring in your questions, and we put them to the fore. So let's get started. Ladies and gentlemen, on the arguments for 4, Ms. Rihanna Masters.
1 minute, wow. That's short.
No, it's just an introductory point. What are the key points that you want to start with? Let's go.
If we're going to have women being part of a campaign to rally for support during election time, and we get them to wear skirts and we get them, I'm not for it, but I'm saying if we're going to use them in that way, toying and going out there into communities and rallying for support, then surely you must find a way to include them in that governance that you are then calling for. That's my point.
Yes, we do believe that a lot of injustices has happened to women. A lot of lack of representation has been caused to women, and we believe that the only way we can fast track, the only way we can fast move the issues of parity is by developing a quota system that at least tries to restore the balance. And that can only be done by the law acting positively to force, at times, society to do what is right.
Very interesting points. If we're going to use women, let's get them in there. If women have been victims of injustice, let's balance it out. We are now clearly having to force people to act. Let's have your say.
I think there's no structure that hasn't got women participating. The political parties, the Within Women's League, which is the most powerful organ of any political party. But how come they don't equally occupy certain positions which are powerful? Why do they then allow certain people to be in power when they're in power? And I think it's also to do with merit. At the end of the day, should it just be a question of if you're a woman, you must get this? Are you actually competent enough? This, I'll elaborate further, goes to section 124B of the Constitution, where there are 60 women elected in Parliament to represent women. What have they done for you?
So thank you, Temba. In addition to that, I think is the quantitative debate enough to address the legacy, structural, and systematic injustices that you're talking about? Should we just talk about the numbers? And we're talking about the 60 women that you talked about, and we have often, over the years, had a problem with the bloated House of Assembly, bloated cabinet. Is it not waste of resources? Is it addressing, or it's actually subjecting these women to secondary denigration, the Bakosi issues, subject to secondary discrimination, the issues of the awarded positions not on the basis of merit?
Yeah. Who wants to go for this one?
At AU level and at SADC level, they have regional instruments that look at a quota system. I don't think you would be looking at it if there wasn't a problem. Okay. Obviously, there's recognition that even though women are participating, and competency for me, I think, is now, an argument that is used when there's no other valid reason. Women are competent. They are doing extremely well. In Rwanda, the economics has changed because of the participation of women in parliament. The way in which they address issues of economic governance, of development, has taken on a different complexion because of their presence in parliament and their voting on policy issues. So for me, and remember, even in South Africa, you wanted to address an injustice, which is why you had BEE. And that is for the same reason that people fought when we were rewriting the Constitution. You wouldn't have put in Section 124 if everything was all right on the ground, if it was a level playing ground. You would have put it there because you recognized there's a problem.
But what about his argument to say, what about the 60 seats? What have they done? How do you respond to that?
The 60 seats, what they've done with it, if you look at the statistics, what they've done is women who are very competent